Hey, welcome to Ditch Digger CEO today, Chris. We got a good one, man. With this John Berger, what a find he is. But if we want to learn from a great entrepreneur, is can't be anybody better than this guy. We did a little pre-call here, and you did your work, your homework here, man. This John is amazing. John, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
John, where are you at today? Where are you at in the world?
I'm in Madrid, Spain, and one of our offices here.
Madrid, Spain. I mean, you don't sound like a Spaniard. Are you from there, or what? Tell us about that.
Now I'm a Texan, so I'm from Houston, and born in Houston, raised in Bryan, right outside of Houston, home of Texas A&M University is better known. But we've got offices in multiple cities around the world: Oslo, Warsaw, Milan, Madrid, Houston, California. Got a couple of offices, and then we just announced another acquisition of the Northeast, Midwest United States last week.
Tell us tell us about what you do, and what I'd like to do is tell us about your business, what it does, and what you're doing to acquire more of this. And then we want to go backwards a bit and talk about your history, kind of your upbringing, and where this entrepreneurial drive came from, and then eventually kind of where you're going in the future. That sound good?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome.
So Otovo is essentially an AI-enabled service company roll-up. And so what we're doing is we're buying service companies that service power assets for homes and businesses that are behind the meter. So think generators, solar panels, batteries, EV chargers, load managers, and such. And so how we make money is we have what Amazon Prime type membership, where you sign up and we're monitoring your system. We'll be there depending on how much you pay us, per month. We'll either be there within 48 hours, 24 hours, or 12 hours. And we're the only ones that do that kind of guaranteed response. And then we get paid on the repairs, and then we do upgrade sales, like batteries and new equipment that comes out. And then we also, in areas that are deregulated or choice markets for utility power, like Houston, Dallas, we sell retail power around solar panels, and generators and batteries, and then take that power, say it's in the batteries, and sell it back into the wholesale system. And we do that for customers too. So it's really, power service for retail and commercial customers, making sure that their assets stay up and fine-tuned, so that as those power bills keep screaming higher, they actually save more and more money.
That's really cool. Okay, so tell us so commercial, residential, or retail, commercial. What's a percentage of each, would you say, if you guessed?
Well, right now it's about 95% residential, but the commercial business is growing pretty nice. We did an acquisition a couple of months ago of some mostly car dealerships in the United States, mostly in Texas. And we're expanding that across the globe. We've got some other acquisitions that'll be on the commercial side as well. And so we see that the commercial business is coming on pretty strong. Wouldn't surprise me in the next year there would be kind of more 80-20, if not even more commercial.
Wow, that's exciting. When you think about your prime customers that you're every day your team has to go after when you acquire these companies, and your sales team, or your old sales team, right? What do you focus on, and how do you go about it?
Well, we're acquiring the company, so we're doing a lot more inorganic customer acquisition. We've acquired a lot of customer books, some of them just divestitures off contractors, installers that installed the solar systems or generators or whatever. Some out of bankruptcy, the customer list. There's been a lot of bankruptcies and behind the meter power over the last 4 years or so, and then we then can market in various different channels, but we have partnerships. Like in Europe, we work with Volkswagen, but we have a number of other partnerships that we work with to bring us leads on customers that are looking for service for their power asset. A big place where we have really fell into was the service problem globally for power assets. Again, think solar panels, batteries, et cetera, is such an acute issue that the manufacturers have had to get into it. And what I mean by that is they have a number of customers that are what we call orphaned. This is a problem in both generator land and solar land, so to speak. And they need somebody to come out and fix. And sometimes they're on the hook for a warranty or product recall or what may be. And so we get paid sometimes by them. And then sometimes we get paid by the customer directly, or in some cases, both, where they're sending us to fix a problem. And the customer's like, hey, but what about I would like another battery and I'm going to sign up for a long-term service so I don't have to wander around in the desert and try to find a service provider next time. So that's really given us a lot of customer acquisition at a fairly low cost as well as we grown out. As we build that footprint, that big footprint in Europe and the United States becomes more and more attractive to these big manufacturers and asset owners because they really just want, as they say, one throat to choke. And,
Yeah.
they don't want to deal with a bunch of people, and really, I've learned through, building multiple businesses in this area. I built an installation business, came out of construction. I built a very large service company before. Those are two very different businesses, very different. The labor in the field it can mix, but one is a pull a permit, measure a job in weeks and months. This theory, and then another one is a logistics business that's measured in hours and days, and those are two very different businesses. And the key mistake for the global industry was assuming, it's all the same thing as a guy who goes out in a truck and does stuff, right? Yeah, that was a big mistake. And that's not just solar, it's getting generators as well. What was solar's second big mistake was, there's no moving parts and nothing ever happens. It's like, take your iPhone, strap it on a roof for 25 years and tell me everything's going to go okay. Yeah, we all know it's not. So that was the other mistake. And so it's really led to, as you normally see with contractors, right, growing up in the construction business, it's boom bust. I don't care what you're focused on. And there's been a lot of bankruptcies in Europe and the United States over the last couple of years in the contractors. And so it created this huge demand of just an empty void of nobody has a big footprint. Nobody's really focused on service. And you've got a lot of people that went out of business. So it's really created a nice opportunity to come in, put a bunch of companies together and do the service.
Super fragmented industry, so new overall, really so new, right? And manufacturers that probably cover huge markets, right? But yet there's totally fragmented market when it comes to servicing them. And initially, I'm guessing, and I've got a solar roof in Schaumburg, Illinois, would put on 100,000 square foot building, put a solar roof on. It's been probably 13, 14 years. And I know they're getting better and better and better. And this roof was okay. It did what we expected to do overall. We've not done much to maintain it actually, and so it needs it for sure. So now you go up there 12, 13 years later, all right, and who do they have to maintain it, to refresh this thing, right? And I gotta believe it's got, and the company that it was. Remember the one company, Solyndra? Is it Solyndra that went out of business out of California?
I bet you it was Son Edison.
Somebody when Obama was in office, there was a company that he caught a bunch of flack because the government loaned them $500 million, and then they were out of business within a couple of years.
That was Solyndra, yes.
Okay,
yes,
so Solyndra,
that's a manufacturer. Yeah.
So that's the type.
Do you have Solyndra panels?
That's the type of roof I think we got, and that's the brand. So again, who's going to maintain them? No manufacturers around or in business anymore, right? And is it different than what you see, what you saw 4 or 5 years later to today? So how do you go about that, right? If you need it, who do you call?
Otovo. I mean, thanks for the pitch to set up. It's a common problem, and what I would say is you've gotten extremely lucky. If your system's working and you haven't had anybody or very, very little truck rolls to go fix something, you don't know how lucky you are. You're really lucky. Like you're probably the top 5%.
Yeah,
You're that one.
I'll tell you what, I won't say nothing because I know the building maintenance guy has had people up there doing some stuff.
Oh, okay.
There's,
Okay.
but not nothing really major that I haven't nothing that I haven't experienced a big big bill that shocks me, right? So but again, the efficiency of that roof is different than the efficiencies of a roof today, right? And
For sure.
what the output, or whatever you want to call it. Give us a little bit of that. So if a company like that did it, they're out of business, and and they call you guys, right? What do you do? What do you do, or how do you go about that? And can you cover that yet in Illinois? Let's say.
About to, with the acquisition we announced last week. Yes, we are coming to Illinois. So, again, how we get the customer, we just went through that. And then from there, we'll typically roll a truck if we can't solve the problem remotely and do a diagnostic. Yes, we take a fee for that. It's obviously different from commercial and residential. And then if there's anything that we find, then we'll present, hey, here's how to fix it, and then this is our price. If you're a member of the Otovo Care Club, then you get 10% off the repairs. And then from there, if there's any sort of upgrade sales you need, a battery, battery prices continue to come off pretty strongly. There's a big boom in batteries, both in Europe and the United States, for, some of the same reasons, but some of the different reasons. And, there's a lot of what I would call more and more systems where you're integrating not only just battery and solar, but EV charger, load manager to manage the load, but guess what? Also generators. And so that presents, being an engineer, it's not a linear issue with regards to failures and failure points. It's exponential, right? As you have more and more, boxes, so to speak, on a roof or a home or business, it starts to become where it's the interplay between those boxes, so to speak, is really contributing to more and more failures. And so we have a real obligation that when some, like for instance, a hurricane hits Houston, and what the problem is, a lot of people think they can get covered by their installer. That installer's gone. He's out. He's selling that in just human nature, with generator or solar with batteries. That installer is out selling somebody else that finally was like, okay, I'm sitting here in the dark and the heat or whatever. I need to go get a generator. I need to go get a solar plus battery. This is why you see ads for generators and solar just explode after natural disasters, because it's just a natural human emotion to go out and start buying that, even though frankly it makes no sense, right? There's no way to get a generator or solar installed to make a difference at that point in time. So it just is what it is. But those installers are gone, man, because they're going to be and
Sure.
look, if the prices go up, this is when everybody else is buying something. It's not they're trying to take advantage of it. It's just going to go up in price. And then somebody's like, hey, I just want to pay a few $100s or $1,000, but whatever it is, get this generator working again because it ran out of oil and I didn't know how to change it. That happens all the time in Houston, in Dallas, all the time across the country. And it's like, yeah, that's not what, there's nobody that's really, truly dedicated, or very few companies truly dedicated to service. So that's what we are. That's what we, we'll go out. If we want to install a battery, typically we'll go grab an installer and do a subcontract and get that done for you. We're here really just to focus on keeping what you got running.
That's really cool because when you look at we built a bunch. We started 30, we're saying 43 companies now, 43 companies in 45 years, and so we're building these businesses and selling them sometimes, killing them sometimes over the years, and less kills than the old, the first 20 years, the last 25 years, but overall, we look at what the most valuable business is, and everybody wants to think, and I used to always think, the bigger the dollars, the bigger the revenues, the better it's got to be, right? But that's not always the case, and not often the case. When you can build a business that's a great service business that services the heck out of the customers, partners with them to always satisfy their needs, isn't a bottom feeder that has to be the cheapest because their service is recognized as great, right? that's a great business. That's a business that creates amazing enterprise value. And so we have these businesses where, some of them are just, like big pay, they pay big jobs, right? But those big jobs have a lot more competition than because they basically take a long time to figure out it, as we talked earlier. You gotta get the drawings done, then you gotta go for permit, and it could take 6 months or a year sometimes in some of these states to pave a parking lot, right? And so a lot of time in between, and with service, it's something it's urgent oftentimes, right? It's not always proactive. It's reactive oftentimes, and so you can charge and make a profit for the great service you provide, at a margin much better than the planned huge development or huge job, right? So the solar field in your case, the big generator bills, whatever it is, right? So when I look at the enterprise value, we talk about enterprise value a lot, and with our CEOs, and we build business on enterprise value, and we know that the revenues mean something, but not as much as really what type of value you're delivering here. Your customers see value in you; they'll pay 5 or 10% more for you compared to somebody else. That's value then, right? And so
Yep.
you're building an amazing business that it's a really cool model where you're going to be able to serve people all over the world with your business, and it sounds like no matter what brands you have, right? When it comes to solar, battery, or or the generators, right?
Yeah.
So when you think of generators, you see all these ads for generators, and some I know are more of residential, some are more commercial, but like, so Generac, I think of Generac generator we put in Florida.
Yeah.
That sounds like that's more of a residential business compared to the Kohlers or the Caterpillars, whoever that might be more commercial. Is that right?
It's interesting. I mean, Generac, recently announced that they did a big data center deal. I think their stock's going to go way up on that, just like data center, whatever. And so that, shows they've moved into really big generators. Kohler and Cummins and Caterpillar are known for that. What I would say is that we have a number of homeowners in Texas that have Kohler generators. I haven't seen too many Cummins, but that's more on the commercial side from what we've seen. But it's not uncommon to see a Kohler generator on a home. But Generac owns about 75% of the market.
That's amazing. And when you look at those different products, you guys are able to service any of them?
Yeah. So I think that's part of the challenge. You often use the analogy of the oil business. I mean, clearly Exxon, Shell, and those guys could go out and buy a rig and buy a frac crew, and or buy a rig and get a frac crew out there, whatever they want to do, right, on the services side. But to even out all the drilling activity in different various locations in the world and such, and just focus just nothing on but drilling a well, or servicing a well, it doesn't make sense for them to really do that. Every time they do, they end up losing money on it. And for us, it's even more so because for a couple of reasons. One, we're really solving problems. So it's not as a proactive, I want to go drill there. It's like, okay, this broke and we need to go fix it, which does happen obviously in the oil business as well, in the oil field as well. But it's much more geared towards it's broken, let's go fix it. So that's one, is like it's all over the place. Two, the likelihood that you're going to roll up to a commercial site or a homeowner site, and it's going to be all your gear as a manufacturer, like it's all Tesla or all Generac or all Solar Edge or whatever, is practically zero.
Wow.
And so you're going to end up servicing both your gear and your competitor's gear at the same time, which is kind of weird. And then so what do? You do you do a great job in your gear and then not there? It's a system. And this kind of got into when you look at it as a system, people are like, I don't get it. The panels don't move. It's solid state device. I was like, yeah, but that's like saying you go to your car and go, okay, it's the engine. I got the engine covered. Okay, but my my air compressor blew out of my Tesla recently. I just had to go get that fixed. So the car moves, it works. It just there's no air conditioner, and it's Houston in summer. So is that
Okay,
really
yeah.
working?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a system, and that's what you got to understand. There's all kinds of things. Fuses, squirrels chew on conduit. There's it's just all kinds of stuff that can go wrong. And again, the more boxes you put on the house or business, more stuff that can go wrong. And so the more likelihood that you're going to have multiple manufacturers on that single location as well.
And without that, that's wild. And and we so we have these service business. One actually in just north of Dallas called Pipeview America is one of our companies, and they're two men in a truck basically, and they put robots and they televise the condition of pipe underground. Most
Yeah.
they work for the gas companies in Texas and Illinois and all over the country. And this business is a pretty cool business, but because for me, we've got these complicated businesses do these big jobs from, let's say, $500,000 to $10-15 million paving jobs, right? Then we've got this business, Pipe America, that does these little services. Basically, it's if these guys are doing a couple $1,000s a day in pipe televising, that's about probably right. And every job might be $500 or $1,000 or whatever it is, but it's very easy. It's very easy for us to provide data to them of to show a good day or a bad day. And I think that when I look at these service businesses, when we find good businesses, we're able to basically build a model that says to anybody in that team, hey, great day, awesome. You guys hit whatever 3,000 foot of pipe. You cleared it, so there's no gas leaks within that stretch. Or boy, you found a crossbore that had some leakage, and success because you may have saved some lives, right? But overall, they know how many feet they should hit, and if they have to they have a jet truck that jets out any stoppages and stuff like that, any blockage. So then they know they get less pipe, that's camera, but then they've got this fee we charge for blasting out the blockage, right? And if they do two of those in a day and 1,000 feet, they know that's a great day. If they do 500 feet in a day and that's all they do, that's a bad day. But when they have a bad day, they know why. They in their documents they say exactly what happened, right? When they have a good day, they know why. And so what happens is any good person wants to have a good day. They want to be productive. They want to have a good day. They want to be successful, right? We try to hire competitive people, and they want to be successful. So how we train those people makes a difference. But it's so much easier when it's two men in a truck and the tools that they have compared to 5 to 20 men on a job, right? And that's kind of where we're at right now. How we build those bigger businesses is different than the service businesses, but the service businesses are awesome because you can if you have great data, right, to make great decisions. Every individual can know what a great day and a bad day is, right? Tell us about your crews, kind of the common crew that goes out, and then what do you do to say, hey, good day, bad day?
Yeah. So we're looking for effectively, we look at utilization of a tech in a van or a truck. I send them from Texas, so I always default to calling it a truck, but most of the time they're vans actually. And it's a trained, and we have various degrees of training as far as electricians, and it depends on the job too. So for like cleaning panels, you don't need anybody that's got really the ability to go out there and service the electrical equipment. And then if you go and have a really intricate problem, you really need somebody knows and has a lot of years of experience and is probably carrying their own license as far as an electrician in that particular state or country. And so that's what the average person, so to speak, looks like as you go
It's
out.
usually one person, one tech person on a job.
Yep. Now we do have what they call energy storage system batteries, is swap out where you're going to need 2 men to go out there and do that. And so it does vary on the job type for sure. Remove and replace, we call them R&Rs for slang. What that is, taking the panels off a roof, having a roofer replace the roof, and then putting the panels back on. So again, R&R. That can also be some insurance claim stuff like Dallas up in hailstorms and things like that. Typically the panels, I mean, very unlikely the panels get blown off or anything like that, much to against popular belief of that, but that doesn't happen. But some of that damage can happen. You'd have to do roof and replace as well.
Those are usually two bed truck, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, two to three, depending on the size of the job. But that a lot of the 2-man is for safety reasons.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
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 So you've got special equipment like dollies, special dollies and so forth to go get to select the Tesla power walls out and so forth. Yeah.
So tell us where this all began. I mean, I love to go deep with all this stuff because it's so interesting. Maybe because we're always building business in the service and construction services, and then maintenance services business and the stuff that we do, right? So it's fun to talk about that. What I really want to get to is kind of like how a guy like you gets to where you're at, right? I mean, what kind of childhood did you have? What kind of upbringing? What type of mentors did you have? So sort of back to, let's say, your teen years or whatever you want, or just getting into a business. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So again, I was born in Houston. I grew up in Bryan. I would say I started at age, I think, 8, mowing yards, and I started in Houston actually, and then just kept doing the yard mowing business. Any other odd jobs. Grew up on a golf course in Bryan, so go run down and go get the golf balls out of the lake and go sell them to golfers, things like that. And I started working for my dad at a pretty early age. He had a geotechnical materials consulting business that he started, and he started it because he was building a lot of the facilities and oil and gas facilities in Saudi and Iran and Kuwait and other places. And then, came back to the US. I had already been born and my 2 siblings, and then, kept going in the business in Texas because the oil business was just booming. This is early 80s, right? So late 70s, early 80s. And then the 85 bust hit and it was all over. So he happened to inherit a little bit of money. And then so he went back there, all of a sudden went to Bryan, started his own business. So that's how I got the entrepreneur bug, is really that way. And also, as you well know, we're talking about, Elon Musk says it's like eating glass being an entrepreneur, right? It's very tough. So I've seen the tough side of it. We're going to make payroll next week, and we're going to make the mortgage payment and so forth. And then the other side is, you have a lot of degrees of freedom, not as many as people think, as Gary, is like you always have a boss. And there you do that in the construction business on top of that, which is very cyclic, and certainly was during the 80s and 90s. But we caught a really nice upward trend of essentially growing the growth of Texas A&M University, and it just boomed. And in fact, in the 80s and 90s, I don't know about recent, but Bryan College Station had the lowest unemployment rate in the entire country for just year in, year out. I used to say it's because it was so boring that if you didn't have a job, you just left. But there's probably some truth to that too. But I really learned. I grew up on the construction site and was an inspector on a lot of the big construction projects. Paving, did a lot of paving testing and road testing, and I broke a lot of cylinders, so I know what the PSI is and the concrete and all that, mortar and testing and all that. So. That's how I grew up. And then I wanted to get in the energy business. There's just something romantic about it, from my perspective. And so I got a civil engineering degree from Texas A&M, worked all the way through and then left. And I thought I was going to get sent on an oil platform out in the Gulf. And I show up on the power trading desk in Houston for Enron. Because I had oil and gas prop tell me if I could get a job there, I should go there. I grew up in Bryan. I didn't know any better. So I was like, sure, let's go do that. 5 weeks later, I was running a utility in Atlanta during the Olympic Games at 22 with five weeks off the stage at A&M. Crazy. But, you're sitting there running power plants up and down. It's really get a lot of experience in that. Did power trading, saw power prices blow out to $10,000 megawatt hours, normally about 15 at that point. give you some perspective on it. And so from there, just kept going. And yeah, I left, went to business school in Boston.
About what year is that?
So I was there from 96 to 01. I left in August of 01. You're like, yeah, didn't 90 days later Enron blow up? Yes. And I was out of there. And I sold all my stock at towards the high.
Wow.
Yeah, people, oh, what'd you know? I was like, I was 26 at the end. I mean, it was like in the 20s. Like nobody ever called me up and asked me what I thought, what they should be doing. So I went to business school, worked for the government for a while, in the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and came out, worked for venture cap for a while. This is circa like 03, 04. I had a feeling that the rise of China in particular, but India was going to have some real pressures on the energy business, namely oil and gas, and I wanted to be a part of the solution. Probably should just go and work for a friend and just traded oil and gas and been a lot better off. I'm pretty sure of that. But wanted to start looking for a solution, and then started to figure out I was more of an entrepreneur instead of an investor. Stop torturing the entrepreneur and go do it. And so I did that and got into it and started an energy efficiency business, really had an investment there, and I took it over. And lo and behold, ended up building the largest solar installer in the southern United States for commercial, government, resi.
What year did you start that, John?
It got started in 06, and I took it over in late 07. I remember that very clearly because I could hear the footsteps of the financial crisis, trying to raise money and get it through the financial crisis. And I sold it on the other side of it. I kind of had to, because my biggest shareholder, who owned the controlling stake, he kind of got killed in the financial crisis, and he could sell me and one other portfolio company. So the golden rule applies, and who has the gold makes rules. So I got sold.
And that was when?
That was in 2010.
2010.
Yeah. And so then I decided, well, you know what? Service is kind of, in financial service at that, is kind of a place to be in the behind the meter power. So I started a company, and then I got another firm called NRG, which is a big power company. And it's the old Houston Lighting and Power, basically. I mean, it's gone through a lot of, acquisitions and mergers and such over the years, but started a company that financed residential solar systems and was servicing them, and doing it through contractors, local contractors, and had that business for maybe 15 months, and they bought it from me. And then I started it again. It was another company. This is
Sorry about this. What was the name of that company? The one that you used the finance and service solar.
Suncap Financial.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, I did that, sold it in 12, and then had the contractual ability to take the management team and started another one again. And got funded by a couple of, very successful oil and gas families, and got Sonova off the ground in early 13, and built that up. It was the third largest residential solar financing and service company in the world. First is Sunrun, second is Tesla, a division of Tesla, and then third was Sonova, and took that public in 19. Grew that at, enterprise value was at, some point, pushing, $9 billion. And then all hell broke loose. Should have sold the company right before Biden got inaugurated, because that was basically almost exactly the share price peak. It didn't even matter passing the Inflation Reduction Act. Didn't matter. The stock only rallied to about half of the peak at that point. After that was done in 22. And then just the interest rate, just in policy change in California, and then just overall, it seems like every time you got through a bad news story, another one would show up, and that's just been the story of the residential solar industry and commercial solar industry of the United States for the past, unfortunately, for the past 5 years or so. And so Sonova didn't end well. It ended up, I was asked to leave at the end there, and Unfortunately, I was kind of keeping it all together, trying to get it through, and then it went under, and now it's got owned by somebody else, and we actually do work for them. So trying to take care of the customers in another way. So it's kind of ironic there, but learned a lot of lessons. Obviously, many ways the hard way in that deal, but learned a lot, taking a lot of those lessons, if not all of them, and applying here with the Otovo, and all the companies are rolling up with Otovo. Otovo is just one of the names I kept for doing. I didn't even keep my name. I just liked it. There was a lot of money, tens of millions of dollars put into it, or millions of euros, more aptly said, put into it. I was like, hey, it's known in Europe. Let's keep the name, and then as we buy these other companies, just keep the Otovo name as we roll.
Did you have a name originally before you started rolling up and you ran across the Otovo?
Yeah, I was Onvis, Onvis. That company lasted a grand total of I was funding it myself, and then July, August, and then got funded, brought in some friends and family in September, and a venture cap, and then I basically had it under contract to be sold by November 5th and closed the sale on December 5th. And it
What,
came to
what year was this?
last year. Last
Oh,
year.
wow.
Yeah, it's not even been a year yet with everything. And
Dude, you
we
move
just
fast.
announced.
You don't, there's no moss growing on your feet. I build businesses that, they're not quite as sexy as yours, and they take a long time to really gain traction. It's amazing how fast you move and build these businesses, and it's fun to see this. Okay, so now, so it didn't sell in November, and you continued acquiring them. And ran across when did you run across Otovo?
So that's what I sold it to. So basically, it was kind of I took it over, so you can look at it. But technically, Otovo bought my company and closed on December 5th. So I became a Norwegian. Get this, a Norwegian solar company. And then I said, okay, they would do new installs. I want to do service. They had 40,000 customers plus a name, plus a bunch of partnerships and Swiss Life, Volkswagen, a bunch of other things. And I said, okay, I think I can do something with that and with the people, but I need to buy a bunch of other companies too. And so we've been on a tear. We bought, three of them out of bankruptcy in Europe. And then we bought some in the US. Energy Aid was the big acquisition, did April 1st. And then we just announced another one last week with SST. We do have a few more in the backlog here that we'll announce. I think you got to be careful. We were public, but I think we'll be able to do that in the next in the not too distant future.
What does your acquisition team look like?
So I've got a long time guy that's been with me for a number of years with the other companies, Nova, and he was really good at understands bankers, lawyers, but also contractors. So he can have a negotiation, but also sit down and have a beer. And so he leads that corporate development effort up. And then we've got a couple of process people that are there to basically clean the fish, so to speak, when you acquire. And we'll have another one here in Europe. And so I try to keep it as a fairly small team. But at the end of the day, it's that we're getting better and better at what to do, and as far as acquiring these companies.
And then what about your training? Acquiring is one thing, and that's a lot of work, right? But then the transition and integration is incredible. I mean there's an art there for sure, right? The same way you have a team for that as well.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We do have some process-oriented people that help do that. And I made sure I've learned long ago that the corp development guys have got to follow, and ladies got to follow all the way through to integration, right? And make sure that it's truly integrated. A lot of that's on the HR side, like, who stays, who goes. But also, it's pretty funny. I just wrote an email out. I said, hey, we got to call the same thing the same thing. What I mean by that is, like, steps in the process of doing a service ticket for somebody. You have one company, a predecessor company calls the initial stage one name. Then you have another one that calls it a different name, and you have, ours calls it a different name. And so you literally have people, not speaking the same language, but saying different words about meaning the same thing. And so it's just stuff like that that you're like, okay, folks, all right, let's just all vote. Maybe, vote anonymously. Just kidding. But I mean, like what are we going to call this stage? And then everybody has to call it in that stage, and you can't say anything else because it's confusing. And we're dealing in multiple countries, so we already are literally speaking different languages, and we have different
Right.
cultures, and there's different ability to understand English. Like I have zero ability to understand Polish and Italian, frankly, frankly, anything. And so we already have that challenge. To add another terminology challenge on top is interesting. So it's just things like that, as you don't really think about, but those are issues. And then there are the ones you do think about, like, okay, you're great, as you're running a founder running a company. What are you going to do here? And are they really telling you really what they want to do? Do they know what they want to do? Do they know themselves, basically? That's a challenge. And it's just, you try and try. And at the same time, I think all of us figure, I was talking to one CEO last night. He was like, this hire just didn't work out. It's all my fault and all that. And I said, hey, the best ones are 50-50. If you're hitting 50%, that's pretty good. In M&A, it's really tough, because you'd really like to, the real successful, like the oil company roll-ups for NOV, Oil States, they kept a lot of the entrepreneurs. Some of those entrepreneurs are still with those companies today, believe it or not. That shocked me.
Well,
That's something I really want to try to build here is, how do you build a team of rivals that, and that's a challenge, right? And that they used to be CEOs. So how do you give them the kind of freedom, but yet, find a way to put them on the same team to move forward. And all the while you're making something much bigger than they ran in the past. And so that's it by itself a challenge, in a very fast-paced environment. AI supercharged that now in terms of
sure.
fast pace.
Yeah, not every leader, every CEO has the capacity probably to go a certain distance, right? Where they have a wheelhouse they're very strong in, and then I know many people that are great at startups, and they get them to 50 or 100 million in value, and then it's not easy to get to the next 50 or 100 million in value, and then they become stagnant because they just don't have the vision. They've never been there, maybe, right, to $200 or $300 million value. And I think that the great ones kind of realize that, right? And they have a number two that they know can take it from there, or they know that the capacity of their team, and know they have to start building a team that can take them to the next level. Having that the vision is really tough for anybody, because we all think we can learn, we can get it done, we can grow to $1 billion value, right? I know where my limitations are, and I've always brought other people in to hopefully take them to the next level. What do you do to kind of evaluate that, and how do you look at that, and what do you guys do to train the number twos and to bring in the next number one? How do you guys do all that?
Well, I think, first is, really focusing on, okay, what do we think this person's really strong at, right? Where are their strengths? And so, like in the Energy Aid acquisition, the CEO there is really good at sales management. Okay, so now he's a VP of global sales, right? And so that's a good example. But you're trying to create a team that, again, separately, you're basically much better together than you are separate, and it's easier said than done, as you pointed out. I think to create a number two person, to me, I don't know. I've seen that. I've been through that a lot. I actually would like to have it where there would actually be several people that could do, my job, and because who knows, what it's going to be like. I don't really envision myself retiring, like, ever. I just enjoy the game. I want to make money. I'm definitely financially oriented versus, what they call mission oriented, especially in our space. You have to really watch that, right? Want to change the world, but you got to change the pocketbook at the same time. That being said, I do this because I want to create something, and you understand that. And I want to keep doing it. And I really suck at golf. And so, I don't know what I'm going to do with my time, and pretty sure my wife doesn't want me hanging around the house. So, it's who I am, and frankly, it's pretty clear that my kids are the same way. So, at least my two sons are definitely, and my daughter's probably right behind them. So, it runs in the family, quite a bit. So I would say that I don't see myself stepping aside anytime soon.
Well,
And
you're a business builder and entrepreneur, and your kids will be the same way. So it's like you'll, in my opinion, you'll participate in some stuff that they want you in. They'll eventually be doing stuff on their own, and you may be partnering or you don't, right, financially or otherwise. And my kids are a little older than yours, and I'm having a blast doing that, right? I'm
yeah,
investing with my kids that want to be entrepreneurs outside of what we do, and I've got a daughter and son-in-law that do that, and then one son that's in the businesses running a tech company, doing a great job with that. And so it's fun to be part of their lives where it makes sense, right? And if they're
right.
if they're if they're great people, that's the first and foremost. And then if they're on top of that, they understand business and they're an entrepreneur, or they want to be a leader in their space or whatever it is, working for somebody, then that's okay, right? So,
Yep.
but you have your
Yep.
three kids all work in the businesses.
No, my oldest son's working with me. He's basically as a gift for the models, the LLMs, and has built basically is in charge of AI and software, and has built all our tech stack for us and created all the agents and everything else. So he's doing that. And then my daughter's doing internship at investment bank, and my son's working with the oil driller, and then my youngest daughter's going to be working, doing some odd jobs during this, as well as go to school during summer. So
You have
my
four?
I have four. Yeah, I have four. And then my wife's family, everybody, her father, her brothers, her sister, everybody's an entrepreneur. My sister-in-law married an entrepreneur. He's got his own wealth management business. So it's like the family meetings are pretty interesting. So, never a dull moment.
No, it's a lot of fun. It's exciting. We talk about what's next, right? What's next in your industry, and how do you use today's technology, and then old wisdom of us as parents, right? And people we know, our mentors, right? How do we use it? The wisdom of experience and time, combined with great young minds that are really grasping all the new stuff, right? It's a great combination if we use it, right? So, and so when we look at kind of where you're at today, where's the stock at today? And
It's about 10 kroner, which is roughly about $1 US. We, I've got, I've done a lot in the capital markets in my career, raised billions of dollars of all kind, debt, equity, tax equity, a bunch of different types of capital. Taken a company public before, and we're marching down the path. We can say that I can talk about this because we've been public about it, about listing in the U.S. It's just the U.S. is the vast pool of capital and liquidity, and the stock here has got to trade better. So we're going to put it in the U.S., and we got a number of U.S. investors already that I brought in. I'm the largest shareholder. I'm U.S. So we expect to have that done in the next couple of quarters.
right. And where do you with your roll-ups, where do you vision the size of the business? Let's say 2 years out and 5 years out.
Yeah, I think pretty clearly we're moving towards with the acquisitions that we've announced, and plus organic growth, plus some organic growth, not much expected, or we expect more, but what we talked about publicly, and then a couple of other acquisitions will be well north of 110 million on the top line. There are a few other deals out there that would easily get us to pushing that past 2.25, 250 million top line. From there, the market size is 56 billion and growing. And what's interesting about the company from an investor, from a strategy standpoint, is it's basically is a Venn diagram of three major themes that are going on right now in the capital markets. The first is power. I mean, everything's going crazy with power demand with AI and so forth. And again, our part of the power industry is the lone place that it's not even, cheaper than say a lot of the other power business. It's in the dumpster. So a big part of what I was doing is just mean reversion trade. Like, yeah, when all the emotion gets out of this and you stop caring about, Trump hating solar or whatever, at the end of the day, my kilowatt hour is just the same as the other kilowatt hour. Arguably, since we're on location of load on top of load, it's actually is worth more. But let's just say it's worth the same. And so that was really one trade, is that, we're going to see that move back up with the rest of the power industry. Second is service industry. I mean, the private equity next to data center, whatever, you just say data center and now your stock goes up, 400% or whatever. But, in the other side of this is services. So you see a lot of roll-ups of like HVAC companies and pools and plumbing and pest control and all this stuff. These things are now pushing 20 EBITDA multiples.
I know.
I mean, that's, like, whoa. And then you're supposed to be buying at 8 times, trying to flip it for 12 to 15. Truth is, they're really paying 10, trying to flip it to 12 to 15. Well, now it's, they're, flipping it to 20. So you can see probably easily that bid's going to go to 12 to 15, right? And we've seen that. We've seen all the number of deals in there. We're buying south of 5. Yeah, give you a perspective on that. And then the last one is AI. I mean, we're somebody asked me yesterday, is like, are you more of a energy service company that's doing AI, it's adopted it and pushing the envelope on AI, or are you more of an AI company that happens to be doing energy services? And I was like, that's a really interesting question. My answer was, we're an AI company happening to do energy services, because what we're doing on the AI side can be replicated. And I fully expect to be replicated in all these different home services areas and other services business. And we're not the only ones doing it. Peter Thiel's doing it with the Founders Fund. My understanding he's rolling up customer call centers in one of his investments. You got Thrive Capital out there. General Catalyst has been very public about doing this. It's because it's really tough to push in AI adoption on normal business, but it's a lot, I would say, easier. It's more, you're able to do it if you start with nothing. And then as companies come in, go, hey, this is the rule of the road. You got to do this. I know you don't want to, but this is what you got to do, versus you're sitting on top and, like I've been there, you've been there. You're like, okay, all 2,500 of you, you're going to use AI. You see,
change the market. Yeah, change the market is good for everybody. Yeah.
And you have token usage games, which didn't work out so well. Let's go have a contest of how to spend the company's money. How fast can you spend it? Those kind of things. And so it's really difficult. And I think that's what we're going to start to see, is how do you have a homegrown business that is using AI from the very beginning?
Yeah. You're exactly right. I mean, it's so hard to change to an AI company from an old school company, right? But it's pretty easy to start up and say, how do we compete now? Using as much AI as possible with people that are passionate about it, right? And that's pretty common. I mean, I talk to people that are in the tech world. They don't want that many old school. A friend of mine's building that friend I mentioned is building a business that builds houses 100% with robots and AI, and he's not hiring a ton of carpenters to figure that out, and drywallers to figure that out. Does he have some people that understand? Yeah, but not a lot of that, because he wants his mind to constantly be questioning why, right? And he doesn't want people on the team that say, oh, we've always done it this way, right? And even if they don't say that, that's the mentality. We've always done it this way, right? But he hires people that are going to question every little nook and cranny of that business as they're building their AI and their robotics, right? So
that's right.
So as you're saying, I agree. I think that businesses, we think that we can take businesses and just turn them into businesses that are heavy AI and robotics, but it's just not that easy. It's almost impossible. Actually.
It's not that. Yeah, it's hard.
But okay, so we really enjoy all this, man. You got so much going on. We could do a few hours of this and have a blast. Every minute of it's to be a blast from my mind to just kind of absorb and everything. Chris, Chris, our producer, on, and I always like to get him in the end to kind of, tell us what he captured when it comes to, what we find out as the laws of success in business building and entrepreneurship. So, Chris, are you ready to fire some stuff at us here?
Oh yeah, man. I'm overflowing with nuggets from this chat. John, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing your time. You've accomplished an insane amount, and I feel like you're not even halfway done. So this will be exciting. To best scale to best scale your offer for your customers, offer them the one throat to choke solution. Own the tech stack and drop your 50 plus SaaS contracts to save money and increase efficiencies. Before you build a business, start with one question: who is solving this at scale? When the answer is no one, that's the signal. John, where can our audience find out more about you and everything you're working on?
Otovo.com. It's everything there, but we try to put out as much material as we can about what we're doing for customers, for homeowners and business owners with their power. And power is a really hot topic these days.
It sure is, John. Really interesting stuff. And you're definitely in an industry, I believe, that's just going to continue to grow. And if you can build things as fast, acquire like you do, and and continually improve the products you're delivering, there's just no stopping you. You're going to continue to do this the rest of your life. You're still a punk kid, so I want to talk to you 30, 40 years from now. I'll be 90, you'll be, I don't know, 70, 80, whatever that'd be. And we're gonna have this conversation again. We're gonna say, yeah, we're not quitting anytime soon. Got a lot more business to build, right?
That's right.
The people that I love the most as my mentors are people that really did exactly that, right? I had this vision of, I'm going to work so hard. And when I was on my, I started paper routes, all things, a lot of the same stuff you did. Kind of funny, but a lot of the very similar stuff. But eventually, I started making money in my 20s. I'm like, man, I'm making so much money. I can retire at 40 years old. And eventually, at 40 years old, before I went broke a second and third time, I could have retired, right? And but gosh, that wouldn't have been any fun. And the wisdom that you gain in your 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, even if you keep your mind, is incredible, right? And your advantage for success is so much better when you've lived a life with so many experiences, right? So I'm with you on that. I mean, I want to, like I said, I want to keep in touch with you. I think there's some ways we can share experiences and customer relationships if you want. My son Austin might be somebody you guys want to talk to, or your son as well. Austin's a great mentor to other young guys and girls that call on him. He's 39 now, but he's a super sharp guy, and he's discovering all different ways in prop tech. So love to do that too. So let's follow up if we can. Chris will give me your information, and I'd love to follow up with you. Okay.
Yeah, I thought that as well. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. It was really nice to meet you. I enjoyed our conversation. We have a lot in common, that's for sure. So,
but I as well, John. So it's so nice to talk. It's nice to meet you and have this time with you. You're an amazing entrepreneur that's going to continue to do amazing things. So we want to keep in touch and just keep pivoting hard, brother.
I will. You too.
So
Take
thanks
care.
for being here
Thanks.
on Dish Digger CEO. Have a great day.